Today, I want to take you on a pilgrimage. And a pilgrimage isn't a journey, it is a sacred journey. I want to take you into the pilgrimage of languaging your consciousness, using specific words to expand your consciousness and to deepen your relationships. I want to ask us to speak more beauty into the world. Maybe put a little more namaste on your tongue. To drink the elixir of truth, beauty, and love, and let it tattoo your soul with the most artistic tattoo you've seen. Oh, good, awesome. Because that's where we're going to go today. I fell in love with language when I was just a child, when I was 9 years old. I fell in love with it when it crossed my doorstep, when actually hate crossed my doorstep for the first time. It was the first time I had ever heard the N-word. It was the first time I'd ever been flipped off. There was this young boy who did this on my way to school. And to live 9 years believing I was the apple of everybody's eye, for that I am deeply grateful, because that is not true for all young people today. But when this young boy called me this name, I had no idea what this was about. I had no awareness of racism at this point. But I knew he was not happy with me. And so I had to ask my parents, and I can only imagine what it was like for them to explain hate to their child. While this was happening to me, as I crossed over to go to school, my parents were dealing with it on a much bigger scale, because all the neighbors had signed a petition to have us move out of the neighborhood because we were a black family, all except for one. Uncle Al and Auntie Joyce, as you can hear, they became family to me. They were Portuguese descent from Macau. And they were, for me, at the safe house. I would go over their house while my sisters played with their daughters, and that was where I could be safe until we moved out of the neighborhood together. But when I went there, I would hear them occasionally speaking Portuguese or Chinese. And I thought, well, that simply must be the language of love, because this is the family that rescued me. This is the family that took a stand with my family. And at the same time, I was going to a bilingual school and I was studying Japanese. And I loved Japanese. It was so beautiful. And so I thought, that must be the language of love. And so I made this illogical connection that nobody would ever make except for a 9-year-old girl who was so confused by being called this name and not wanted. And I made this connection that said, I just have to find the language to reach these people, even if they're speaking English. I need to find a way into their culture. So I made a strange oath at 9 years old and said, I'm going to learn as many languages as I can, so that I can connect with people, because certainly that was the only reason this boy didn't like me. If I could communicate, I thought, then we could close that gap, we could cross that divide, and we could play and be happy again. I never wanted another brown child to be disliked, or any child. So I learned many languages, none of which I can speak today. I studied many languages, I traveled the world, and lo and behold, I got exactly what I was looking for. Every projection I put on some culture or some people was immediately eradicated when we spoke and we came together. Any projection that anybody had on me was immediately gone because we crossed that divide. Somehow the languages brought us together. And we were closer. And I thought, wow, this is really cool. I wish everybody could experience this sense of connection, the sense of being one with people, but it wasn't practical to keep learning languages, and I certainly couldn't teach the world 1,000 different languages. And so I thought, how can I bring this sense of connection to other people? What is the way? Perhaps there are words that can do that, if not language. And so I thought about it, and I researched it, and nothing came to me for a long time. And then one day, I was standing on a Native American reservation in Arizona. And I was listening to our elders speak, and they were speaking in their native tongue of Dene. The Navajo Nation speaks Dene. And I'm listening to this elder speak, and I don't speak Dene. And she starts to speak, and I just start to weep and cry. And my friend sarcastically elbows me and says, yeah, you speak Dene? And I said, no, I don't speak Dene, but I can tell you exactly what she's saying. So I relay the story to her. And the Navajo brother standing next to me says, how could you know? That is almost verbatim, word for word, what she said. How could you know? You don't speak our tongue. And I said, I don't know. I don't know how I know. I thought about that for a long time. And then I realized There is a place where resonance starts to reside in us if we're paying attention, that goes beyond the mind's capacity to translate or understand, that we can hear each other's story when we're in deep connection. All those years, I thought I was learning languages so I could communicate. I thought I was using language to a means, to an end. And what was really happening is the language was using me. I was becoming Japanese. I was becoming Hebrew. I was becoming Cuban. I was becoming Guatemalan. I was becoming them. They were becoming me. I did not bend language. Language bent me. Language created a resonance. So then I got really excited. And I thought, well, that's cool, but how do I bring this to the rest of the world? How do I achieve this dream? And so it's kind of one of those things, you be careful what you ask for. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right? And one night, I dreamed the words. The words just came downloaded into my dream. And I saw them. And I screamed in absolute terror. I screamed at the top of my lungs at midnight and woke my husband up. And he said, what's going on? I said, nothing. The words horrified me. So I just put the words away and I deleted it. And then I dreamed the words the next day. And I woke up at midnight screaming my head off. For 30 days, that happened. And I thought, okay, I have to let it go. I have to surrender. The words are not going away. I asked for them. They're here. And the words scared me because they were religious words. And if you think we heap projection and perspective on race and culture, what we do to religion, what I've done to religion, is a whole nother level. How could I talk about consciousness and connection and wisdom through religious words? I couldn't see it. And then I thought, they're not going away, and I don't want to keep my husband up anymore at midnight. So I suppose I'm going to have to do what I did with Chinese or Japanese or French or sign language. I think I'll have to come to it naked. I think I'll have to come to it and see it in its original form, its original biological essence of beauty, truth, and love. I suppose I'll have to bend to it and let it bend me. I suppose I'll have to respect it and see the story it wants to tell me, and allow the language, like I did all the other language, to recontextualize my very being and see what happens. And so that's what I'm going to ask of you today, because we are so casual about how we communicate. And I don't want you ever to be careful, but I am asking you to be intentional. We are so loose with our communication, or else we're so politically correct about our communication, but we're not in communion with our communication. We're not expanding our consciousness and deepening our relationship. And when we use specific words, when we use words of consciousness, not only will it cultivate a sense of consciousness, it will cultivate a sense of wisdom. Each one of us is a little bit Martin Luther King, a little bit Mother Teresa, a little bit Florence Nightingale, etc. And we need more wisdom in the world, because all the smarts, all the intelligence we have doesn't change our world. It's the wise ones that change us. We need our sages in the room. So let's put a little beauty on our tongue. Let's speak a little more namaste into the world. Let's drink that elixir. So without further ado, if I can use this, thank you. Thank you. I want to introduce you to the language of consciousness. Of course, this is not the only word, but this is where we'll begin. So let's see if I get this right. Good. The first word, glorious. And first of all, I just want to say, I love that you can look up in the dictionary and you can find out when something was birthed into consciousness. This word has been waiting around. Yes, it's been used in the context of religion, but these are not religious words. These are words for us, for our universal being to use to expand us. Let's free them from just one confine. Let's free them to let us recontextualize. You're going to edit that piece, yes? Yes, good. Came into consciousness in 1275. It's about having great splendor. So imagine awaking in your day, and whatever's happening in your day, you think about it just as being a glorious day. The fact that you even woke up is glorious. What would shift in your behavior, in your speech, in your approach to the day 1200, worthy of respect and dedication. What is sacred that maybe needs to be named into your world? This is one of my favorite. Communion came into consciousness in 1832. Communicate intimately, to be in a heightened, intimate receptivity. I like to think of communion, I like to do a little word swap. So instead of going to that board meeting or to that meeting with somebody you're challenged, what would be different if you thought about it as being in communion? I'm going to be in communion. Wow, that would be glorious. Oh, did I do that? Sorry. But that would be awesome. How's that? To be in communion with each other, that's a whole different stance, yes? Benevolence. We could use a lot more of that in the world. And the truth is, it's around us. We just have to name it. Came into consciousness in 1400. An act to show kindness and goodwill. Sometimes I think just naming something as such brings it more into our awareness. And then our consciousness begins to look for more of it because we've identified it. Devotion came into consciousness before 1200, giving oneself entirely to one purpose. I love the word devotion, and I love to swap it out for hard work. I work so hard. Oh, honey, just pour yourself into that. Forget about hard work. Just be devoted to that. Just pour yourself in like a glass of wine into that. Let go of hard work. But are you devoted? Are you devoted to something, to someone? That's a whole other level. I mean, look at those little pups. Absolutely devoted. Peace, not a religious word, came into consciousness in 1358. And I think the reason why this one was downloaded in my dream was because when we speak of peace, it's often in a longing, a desire of, as though it's something out there. But if we don't name it in our present world right now, then how will we know when it's here? I think often we have peace in our life, but we don't name it. We might use other words like calm or good. But if we name peace, if we stop longing for it, if we identify it, then we call it to us. Holy. This is the one that scares most people, which absolutely delights me now. But came into consciousness in 1200. Actually, when I did a blind test of these words, I sent these words around the world to people in envelopes, which they didn't get to open. I'm not going to go into that. But this is the one word that didn't resonate highly. And it took me like a second to realize that the only word that gets used evaluatorily, holy as, holy cow. Yes? So I changed it to holiness, and then it resonated very highly. But to think of something as holy, to be in holy communion, to think right now that this TEDx, this Dreamacon Valley, is a holy experience. It's amazing. It's associated with divine power, of which we all have. You do know that, right? You have divine power. Oh, that's all of them. Good. So on this pilgrimage, we're going to put that little namaste on your tongue. We're going to speak more beautiful words into the world, into your soul, into your relationships. And I promise you, Girl Scout promise, your consciousness will expand. Ahe matakiase.